Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I got a job dancing for Paul Taylor, which Paul Taylor, we are celebrating our 70th year next year. For those of you that might not know, we were founded in 1954. We traveled the world extensively, which we can talk about. We've performed in close to 700 cities in 60 countries. So bringing art and bringing modern dance to the widest possible audience is one of our missions. But for us, it really is the one-on-one connection with your patrons and understanding their values and what our art or what our product does that connects to that. And how do we amplify that when they can't actually see it or feel it or touch it. So it was a very interesting experience.
Denton's, as you know, global law firm, 200, whatever it is, 10 offices worldwide. We are, as we talked about earlier today, our program, we're global in nature, not just because of the offices, but we're a self-selecting group. So it always caught my attention, or your global orientation always caught my attention. So how did you what was the impetus of going global when there's a lot to do here in New York?
So basically, kind of give you like a modern dance 101 is that in the 1950s and 1960s, there was an incredible amount of support coming out of the government to bring American art to other countries around the world. And basically, 90% of our operating budget in terms of touring was coming from the NEA and was coming from the State Department. So we were, through Paul Taylor's choreography, because he is one of the genius dance makers of the 21st century. I mean, it's basically, or 20th century, excuse me. The State Department was like, we want you and your art out in the world to represent America. So that launched our global brand, you would say. And Paul Taylor, who was dancing at the time, happened to be an incredible performer. He was a competitive swimmer, actually. I compare him to Michael Phelps in terms of size and stature. And it was very rare at the time to see someone of that height and that wingspan to move as fast and as fluidly as he did. What ended up happening after Paul Taylor retired from dancing is he started making, in pretty rapid succession, some of the greatest art of the 20th century, which propelled further to keep his art out there. Internationally, we're doing about 8 to 10 countries per year and hitting around 30 cities every year.
So talk to me about, we're about innovation. Our group, we're about, our clients are about risk, risk management, risk mitigation, getting through challenges. What do you worry about in terms of where you're taking the company to the next level? What keeps you up at night?
So looking at technology, looking at the sociocultural worlds and crises that we're in right now, what's keeping me up at night is how do we have the platforms that are stable enough to keep arts and culture thriving and being seen by as many people as possible? And if there are barriers in the way, whether it's access or funds, how do we build them and build them as quickly as possible? We're not quite sure what the next arts ecosystem is going to be, and who's going to be funding it. How much of it is going to come from government? How much of it is going to come from individuals? How much of it is going to come from tech and corporate support? But at the same time that financial model is being kind of reset, you also have a group of artists who are trying to assert their individuality relative to the cultural moment that we're in and relative to technology and what's happening in this intersection between humanity and tech. And where can the art lead in that dialogue? I want the art to succeed. I want the art market. And I'm not just talking about dance. I'm talking about opera. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about ballet, theater. So it's like you are at chapter 1. We're at chapter 70. Let me try to give you the cliff notes to help you as much as I can. And in that way, how can that position us as leaders in this climate where that is being reset. But we have to build back audiences. Again, it's a 3-year window. It's survival mode. So how do you condense a 10-year strategic plan down into 3? And it's person to person. It really is for us.
So just as our clients have, the emerging growth companies, the startups, they seek capital from investors, investors, both individuals as well as, of course, VCs, venture capitalists. How are you? You alluded to this. I want to drill down a little. How do you actually connect with what we would say in our parlance, prospective investors? Mm-hmm. You would say prospective patrons,
yeah.
philanthropists, etc. How are you connecting with them, rather than just waiting for someone to walk in, like me, saying, "Hey, I love you guys," as opposed to, no, we got to engage market to find support.
We try to create as many entry points into our mission as possible in as many places as possible. Most of you in this, I don't know this room, but I'm guessing most of you would look at, do I love modern dance? I don't even know what modern dance is, and you might keep walking. But if I were to create a door that said like dance, music, visual art, power, beauty, live music with Time for Three, Orchestra of St. Luke's, new incredible innovative works that are disrupting what it means to be human. All of a sudden, I create all these doors around the building. And so you create as many doors as you can, step 1. And step 2 is you create as many opportunities throughout the course of the year in New York. And all of a sudden, these touch points start being built that they may not even know that they want to become a patron, but then over time, you're like, oh, actually, I want to see what they do here. How is it different? What is the company doing next? So all the programming that I create from an artistic standpoint is to create that conversation of what are we doing next? How are we innovating and leading relative to the market that we're in?
And so how do you view competition? Like, we talk about competition, we say, you got to know your competitors, you got to know your competitive landscape.
It's a great question, actually. I would say our biggest competitor and this is something in terms of leadership and knowing the market, and I'm kind of, you're talking about how you take risks and learn and grow as a leader.
We're focused like a laser on brand. We've spent day and a half talking about brand, if you will, and building brand, sustaining brand, moving brand in certain directions to allow you to, again, ultimately penetrate markets and grab a greater market share.
How do you take a brand that's rooted in a founder, in a person, Paul Taylor, and how do you shift that to an idea of what Taylor represents? That idea of moving from a founder, from a family-based company, you might say, into something that is larger, that has a different type of impact. Taking our founder with us, obviously, and celebrating him and his genius, but positioning us in a new way that what we represent triggers our buyers in a way that sparks more conversation about how we're innovating.
Right. And by the way, as you're speaking, it just strikes me that there's so many similarities to what we've been talking about, what we do, how we innovate in market. One of the panels just talked about how you always have to iterate. So just when you think you got it right, something happens in market that you have to have the nimbleness and the resources, the wherewithal to pivot and embrace the markets. Another one of our colleagues yesterday in our early session talked about how you have to be an active listener.
Watch your audience, watch the work.
Yeah.
Don't watch the work. And it's a huge game change because you are naturally, hopefully, you're passionate about what it is you're selling. But if you're not watching your clients or your potential clients respond to what it is you're selling and trying to understand them, you can be as passionate as you want. But if no one's buying, no one's buying. I'll watch, like if you're the stage, this is how I watch the show. I watch the audience from the box. What are they responding to? What generations are responding? How are they responding? Then I can place our brand better. And it's different in different markets.
Yeah.
Especially internationally.
Incredible. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me.